Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is a guitarist and instructor, Nick Morrison. He's right there. If you didn't notice by the 4 guitars behind him, he is into the guitar, and you can find him at guitardojo.ca because he's in Canada and Calgary. We'll talk to him about that as well. But on YouTube, a great follow there, SamuraiFingers. SamuraiFingers. We'll have to figure out what that means as well. All in the Playful Humans podcast today. So let's get it started here. If you want more information on Playful Humans, just go to playfulhumans.com. You can take our quiz or join the community there. Here we go. All right, there we go, Nick. That is the theme song and Chasing the Sunshine by Pink Zebra. And we like to start with the joke of the week. The joke of the week is brought to you by the car park. It's basically a PSA here. I heard there were a lot of break-ins over at the parking lot, and that's wrong on so many levels of the garage. Okay, here's the joke of the week.
That wasn't it.
My joke. I lost my job at the bank, Nick, on my very first customer. An old lady asked me to check her balance, and I pushed her over.
Oh,
not very good. Do you have a joke for us?
I got one for you. Sure. How do you get a guitarist to stop making noise on his guitar?
I don't know.
You put some sheet music in front of him. Heyo.
But I still haven't. It's been like 100 shows, and I still don't have the rim shot for our cheesy dad jokes, but I appreciate you playing along.
Absolutely. I love dad jokes. It's one of the best parts of being 40.
Yeah, exactly. There are upsides and downsides of that. So let me ask you a question there, because I feel like midlife is an interesting thing where you kind of settle into this groove of what I call like the content creator middle class. Where, you know, like when you're 20, you want to be a rock star, you want to be on stage, you're pretty. When you're 40, you're like, that sounds like a really late night and exhausting to me. Maybe I just teach guitar, I do a YouTube channel, and I make money and I enjoy it, and 100%. I don't have crazy fans, or I don't have late nights or drugs and alcohol involved. I can be married and a lot of other things. So how did you settle into where you are in your career? How do you think about what your goals are now?
That was a multifaceted question. So I'm really lucky in that I kind of got to do that in my 20s. So I lived the rock star life. I was a session player. I was a touring guitarist. I played backup for a bunch of different bands. I did like, I'm sure in the States you've got it too. We've got a thing called Broadway Across Canada here. And so like I toured with shows. I did Grease. I did Mamma Mia. I did, what was the other one? Anyway. And, you know, playing guitar really took me around the world. So USA, Canada, Europe, Japan. I was in Asia for a while. And I got to do that, and I had a lot of fun. And, you know, but you sort of get on with it after, you know, 5, 6, 8, 10 years. And you're like, you know, it's not as fun and glamorous as it used to be. And I met my wife, and you don't want to be around away from her as long. And you start to transition and go, okay, so how am I going to still stay involved with music and still stay involved with, you know, being creative without necessarily being out on a road all the time? And I did teaching in my teens, in my very early 20s, and I didn't really want to get back into it at that stage because I was still pretty young and kind of arrogant, like, you know, those that can do and those that can't teach, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was doing some research, and I had some buddies of, you know, I have a fairly good professional network, and was kind of asking, like, you know, what are you doing for transition? Like, how are you involved? And it sort of came to be that I got involved with writing music for film and television. And so around 2008, 2009, I started to get my first placements. And that provided a really great income and, you know, sustainable lifestyle for me, although there, it has its ups and downs as well. But it's really cool because you like write a piece of music once, and if you're lucky, I mean, look at the guys that did the theme song for Friends, right? I don't think they've ever released any music since then, and they're millionaires. So there's some unpredictability, but really, really good and fun time. But all the way along, still sort of, getting out and gigging and playing and whatever. But again, you kind of hit that 38, 39, your back starts hurting, and I'm like, I don't really want to carry my stuff out anymore. And I used to be crazy. Like I had like 4x12 cabs with like massive three that actually ran and one that was like a prop, but like 100-watt Marshall heads and like just pedal boards out the wazoo. And I've got it pared down now. I've got like 1 amp and like 2 pedals and like 1 guitar that I'll bring with me, and that's all I need. But you start kind of winding down a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, again, what do I do? How do I keep involved? And it turns to, or it doesn't have to, but in my particular case, I'm like, well, I've got all this knowledge, I've got all this skill. Why not give it to people? And YouTube is such a cool platform that allows anybody with an internet connection and a halfway decent camera and a halfway decent microphone to connect with people around the planet. And it's been a wild ride. I've had a lot of fun. I've taught students online, like kind of in person, from, I think my youngest online was about 8. My oldest was about 80. And I don't do a ton of teaching one-on-one anymore. But I've got the YouTube channel. I've got the website, obviously, where, I offer courses and stuff. And then my most recent thing is I've started writing books. And that's even better because now it's like, okay, cool. I've got like actual textbooks that I can sell and just, again, spread the love of music and the love of guitar as far as books can be sold. And if you get something on Amazon, I mean, I could ship a book in Cambodia, which is cool.
Well, it's amazing. There is, I appreciate, I think you answered all of the questions, what I was trying to set up and go exactly, because there is this evolution, and I kind of had the same thing where I was doing club DJ stuff and radio things, and then met my wife at one of my gigs and was like, getting married and stuff, like, I'm not sure I want to be out till 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was also doing other, day job stuff during the day. And you're like, this is getting pretty tiring.
Yes.
I also kind of saw that, like, I don't know any cool 40-year-old club DJs, you're always like,
kind of few and far between, right?
Yeah, they put helmets and masks on now so that you can't see their gray hairs.
Right.
But,
yes.
So there is a way to pull that off. I wasn't that creative, but I kind of thought, like, there is a sunset to this where I'm going to want to be doing something else. And I think there is something also to what you said about aging, where you want to start teaching other people to do it, or you have all this experience and you're like, okay, well, I know I can go out and play a show and get applause, right? Like, that's something that I always have in my bag of tricks.
Yeah.
But it starts becoming about other things, lifestyle design or legacy and stuff.
There's a little bit of that,
certainly. People miss. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that. I think 2 things. Number one is there's always like the sellout thing. I got that early in radio, and I've told this on the podcast before, but I just knew in radio, it's like, you're selling out for sure to get on there. I'm reading sponsorships for companies,
100%.
Whatever they pay me to read, I'll read it and play it.
Yep.
But then also, I think on the other side of that is that in this kind of content creator middle class, is like, you kind of have to give up the dream of fame, and fame isn't all that has cracked up to be either. So I think everybody thinks they want to have a whole bunch of fans and be famous, but having an audience is different than being famous. Can you talk a little bit about that in your experience too? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, to your point, being famous so that your name or your image or your music or whatever it happens to be that you've created is sort of hits that tipping point of the collective conscious where everybody knows who you are, knows your name, knows your image, knows whatever. That's a whole different ball of wax. And it's really, that's, the pop artist or the pop figure or the actor or the influencer, I suppose, if you want to do, in our world, which is great. And there's a whole host of things that come along with that, as well as a whole host of problems and things. But getting to a point where you have a fan base, i.e. a true following that are interested in you as a person. And I think this is the power of social media, how it's evolved. And I think it was always there, but it's just now within the past probably 5 years that people have really started to figure it out, where people are interested in you as a person, your journey. What is it that I'm certain, obviously there's a portion of voyeurism there as well, right? On both people's parts, right? But it's also, hey, I want to learn something for you, or I'm really interested in your point of view, because you can look on YouTube and there's, political commentators, there's music instructors, there's ESL instructors, there's travel people, like everything and everything. And there's this great, I can't remember who wrote the book, but there's this, it's a book. It's called 1,000 True Fans, or maybe it's a theory in a book.
Yeah. Kevin Kelly, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the one. And, if you want to make a decent living, and again, I'm not talking about buying a Ferrari and a, 20-room mansion, but you can make a really good living having 1,000 people that are extremely bought into and aligned with your worldview and enjoy the value that you give them on an educational standpoint or a voyeuristic standpoint or an entertainment, whatever it happens to be. And you start to get to a point where it's like, okay, well, I've got the new car, I've got the house, I've got the wife, got the kids. Like my life's pretty good, actually. I don't need all this other stuff. I could actually just, if I wanted to, I could go and work at a music store and, make minimum wage or maybe a little bit more than that and have a pretty good life. I don't want to work retail, but I could do this thing and it's a lot of fun, And so that's kind of where I'm at now with it, where it's much more about providing really good value for people. And to the focus of the podcast, my whole thing is about making music fun again for guys like me, right? Maybe not exactly like me, but have followed a similar trajectory where you learned guitar or you learned music, guitar specifically, because that's what I teach. But, it's like you learned probably when you were a teenager or maybe, 10 to 15 or whatever. You played, you thought you were going to be a rock star, and then life happened. Maybe you became a dad, or there was an accident, or somebody died and you had to take over, house payments to keep the family, housed, whatever it happens to be. But life happens. And you kind of find that between 20 and 40, a bunch of stuff happens and changes. And then around that 40-year mark, call it 38 to 45, something like that. Guys like us, it's like, I really miss playing guitar, right? But there's so much out there, and there's so much like, you have to do this, and you have to learn how to read music, and you have to hold it just so, and you have to start with classical before you play electric, and like all these rules. And I'm just like, no, like, you want to play Black Sabbath War Pigs? Let's figure out how to get you playing Black Sabbath War Pigs in the shortest amount of time possible so you can have fun, whether it's jamming with your buddies or playing for your kids, or maybe even getting out and, playing in a bar again, if that's what you want to do. But there's, especially guitar, but music is, there are no rules. Yes, there's rules, but like, it's just open up your mind, have some fun. And I feel like I take a lot of slack for that, because like music theory specifically online, like it's a very divisive topic. And I'm one of those guys that's just like, you don't need it. Like, let's show you how to have fun. You can play. And people forget that it's play music, not work music or stress music, right? Like, who wants to do that? That's
exactly what we're talking about on this podcast. And I find so many things are like that, right? That, I mean, you could take about there's all kinds of different play, and that's what the quiz on my website is for, right? You could be sports, right? You don't have to be a professional athlete to enjoy playing sports.
Absolutely.
But so many people say they're sports fans now, but they enjoy TV. They don't enjoy sports. They're not actually playing football. Like, you got to go do something, right? And it's great to listen to music and dance or move or other things, but actually learning how to do it is the fun part. And what I love about music, especially, and really all forms of play, is you're not trying to win it, right?
No, like, it is. Music is not a contest. So the point isn't to play it the fastest or the loudest or whatever, or any kind of, it's all a taste and a chance to play and explore with it, which is just enjoyment of the music for as long as it's enjoyable. And then if it's not fun, like, quit doing it. Exactly.
It's supposed to be something to enjoy.
Yeah. And I think especially because I feel like the internet now is much more geared towards, at least it seems much more geared towards like a younger demographic. Like, I'm going to say maybe 15 to 25, maybe 30 at the most. But there's a lot of young kids growing up. I learned to play guitar by, once a month I'd get Guitar Player magazine and I'd have 4 songs in it. And that's kind of how I started to learn to read music and learn to read tab. And I taught myself. And, I would put tapes in the tape deck and I would like stretch them out so that they would slow down. And then I have to like detune my guitar and I'm like, okay, what was that? Rewind, play it again and whatever. So it was a really long process. But now the internet, you can call up anything. Like think Eddie Van Halen's most ridiculously difficult solo, or Steve Vai's most complex thing that he's ever done. And there's somebody explaining to you how to do it, which is a phenomenal learning resource. And that's exactly what I do, more or less. I don't break specific songs down, but
youtube.com/SamuraiFingers.
yeah. But you know, kids can get on and suddenly like eclipse the Steve Vai's and the Eddie Van Halen's in terms of technical ability at like 14, at 16. And it becomes this Instagram race of these flashy clips of like, look how fast I can play, look how many notes or whatever, which is cool. That's a whole thing. I get it. I love it. You know, I was a young guy at 1.2 and wanted to show off as much as I could. But it has kind of turned into a bit of a competition where that's not really what music is about. And it should be about fun and enjoyment and putting a smile on your face, or putting a smile on the face of the people you're playing for.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I'm striving to give to people, rather than.
So I wanted to ask you two questions specifically about YouTube, because that's your channel and you've been on it for a long time.
Yeah.
The first one is, I think there has been this swing where, or maybe it's just growing up and being more mature and sophisticated, but I think people, like we said, wanted to be famous and they want a huge following. And I think the social media sites did too. They were like, oh, we need these viral hits and stuff. But
yeah,
as the internet has splintered into these niche markets and stuff, it's not necessarily about being Mr. Beast and having 100 million views of your video, although there is still a place for that. And I think the internet
100%.
will always have a viral place. But the majority of creators or people that make a living might have one of those big videos, but most of the time they're talking to those 1,000 true fans or so. Can you tell me a little bit about how you see the internet changing and how it's rewarding actually more specificity than generality?
I mean, I've been around like since YouTube first started and like launched. I'm not going to go so far as to be like I was one of the first creators ever, but like I was in that first 6 months to a year because I saw it and I was like, this is incredible. At that point, it was all about virality, and it was just, you never knew what was going to hit. And it was like, let's film my cat doing something stupid, or let's scare my brother while he's in the shower or whatever. And it was videos that were like just taken. There was no voiceover. There was no intro reel, no like narration, like nothing. It was just horrible, like shot on a potato, usually, you know, your Motorola Razor. And then you'd upload it and that was it. And you know, you fast forward, that's like what, 2006, 2007, even into 2010 and 12, things started to get much more sophisticated. And it's still at that point was very, very much about like, let's reach as many people as we can. But you kind of get to a point where all of those big channels, and again, whatever niche you're in, they've kind of got their big guys already that kind of talk to everybody about everything within that niche. But now what we're seeing is sort of that 2015, 2016 and onward is that people are more interested in engaging longer term with people that are like them, that speak their language, that understand all about like the very one specific niche thing that they're interested in being on YouTube about. And YouTube has really figured this out. And what their algorithm is like, they have a whole team of engineers at Google that like are really good at giving your content at exactly the right person that needs to see it. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're making content that speaks to a specific person with a specific need, you're always going to get there. And to your point, yeah, you're going to have, I've got a video on my channel that consistently every month, I have no idea why, because it's like a tech video, like how to install a piece of hardware on a guitar. I mean, I can kind of see why it's important, but like consistently every month, it's like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 views, like just month over month. And it's been a decade. I'm just like, what? That's one of those videos that's just crazy for me.
Yeah.
Whereas the bulk of what I do, and that's of course people that have never heard of me, they just want to learn how to do the thing and then away they go. But the bulk of what I do speaks directly to my audience. And that's, again, to that 1,000 true fans, just focusing in and giving them what they want. Like you figure out what works and then you double down on it.
What I think so interesting about that is that it's not just YouTube that's working that way. I think like companies and businesses wanted to scale and they wanted to blow up and become the next Amazon or Walmart or something. But now we've kind of gotten to the point, especially in the pandemic, where it's like, oh, maybe we don't need global supply chains. Maybe I need a small business down the street that can get me what I need. Or, even that stuff is great. That's always going to be there, but somebody's already there. So you're not going to out Amazon at this point.
Exactly.
What you need is something that's different, something that's niche, that's, custom and bespoke to people that they find value and are willing to pay somebody locally extra money for. So I think, kind of stretching that out to anybody listening or watching, it's whatever your thing is. If it's not music or YouTube videos, if it's writing a novel or a short story, like write for your audience, don't write the Harry Potter. You're not going to out Harry Potter.
Exactly.
Right? But you can do something else that connects with people and that finds enough people that finds it interesting. And the other thing that's cool about it is, with 7 billion people on the planet, it's not very hard to find 1,000 people that are.
Well, and this is the cool thing, right? So if you look at just statistics in terms of like audience demographic and or potential buyers for a product or a service, and you can look this stuff up through all of the stats websites and whatnot. But in the U.S. alone, let's say you've got whatever your audience is. Let's say male. So we're going to talk about me, right? Males 35 to 45. Play guitar, are into Metallica, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. Like we go down the list. My audience, depending on a few factors, but basically is about 8 to 12 million people. Are you kidding me? If I could sell my product and just make $1 to everybody in that demographic, like that's it, job done.
You never have to work again. Yeah,
right.
You're done.
So it's kind of this logical fallacy of like, oh, I want to appeal to everybody so that I can make more money and I can, get more notoriety or make more, whatever it happens to be. But the truth is that the further down you go, the more you're going to connect with those actual people. And it's still a humongous market. And that's just in the US, not Canada, not South America, not Europe and whatever else. So like you think worldwide, it's a huge number of people, which is
now,
really exciting.
You also had a negative experience, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about that as much as you're willing to share, because I think especially young people who are putting themselves out there on TikTok or whatever haven't thought about the downsides of doing that. And I think it's worth at least talking about for a couple minutes.
It's worth at least talking about for a moment. It's not going to happen to everybody. It will happen to some. But I operate under the premise that most people are good people, right? And most of life is pretty good, and there's not, there's always a chance that you could walk out the door and get hit by a bus, but you have to assume that's not going to happen. But it is worth thinking about. So going back to my first experience on YouTube in 2006, I built up a pretty good channel. I moved to Japan and I was living there, and I was part of what's called like the J-vlog community, so Japanese vlogs. And we made videos about, takoyaki stands and sushi and just, here's a bullet train and like just whatever. And I actually built up that channel. I think I had about 50,000 subscribers, and I was actually part of the first wave of monetization that rolled out. I didn't make a ton of money, but I made some. And then sort of a few years after that, because I sort of got pretty big, I actually got a stalker who was obsessed with me and great, watched my channel and, commented and all that stuff, but like found out where I lived and started coming to like try and hang out with me or like meet me or buy me gifts. And it was just kind of weird. And so I ended up moving and he found me again. And that happened 2 more times. And so finally I was just like, okay, I got to kill the channel. Moved again, like went completely underground and like went radio silent on all social media for a while. And then of course moved back to Canada. So it wasn't really a big deal, but these things do happen. Not the end of the world. Can be scary at that time. And, this is me thinking, going back like, 35, 36-year-old man, so I can only imagine, to your point about a TikTok, like a 16-year-old, female maybe having something weird happen. So again, you want to be thinking about it, be careful, don't shoot in front of your house or shoot in front of your school, that kind of stuff. Definitely be aware of surroundings and be aware that there is a possibility. But for the most part, I think everything's pretty okay,
Yeah, I think that's fair and good advice too, is at least take like moderate steps. I'll add one to your suggestions there, which is I love the stage name. When I was on the radio, I went by Romeo because of my last name. Okay. And having an alter ego was awesome because I can know instantly if I'm out with my friends and somebody comes up and they're like, "Hey, Romeo," they all know this person is not somebody I know, and they can either pay attention or they can treat them, like a stranger. And if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, Mike," then they know that that's one of my friends and somebody
Right,
that we
right.
can welcome into the group, sit down at the table or whatever.
Nice.
And stuff. And it just creates a level of separation because I had the same thing again, nothing scary, but people sending gifts to the radio station or trying to show up and or get my address and things like that. And
Yeah.
I never felt unsafe, but it was definitely a point where you're like, oh, I should probably
Yeah.
pay attention.
Yeah, and it's funny that's it because so I remember you were asking about the whole SamuraiFingers thing. So that came from my time in Japan. I was playing with an act there, and the music director looked at me. He's like, "Man, you're like a guitar samurai. You got like samurai fingers, right?" Just because of the way I was playing and whatever. I don't even remember the tune, but I was just like that's fun, and that kind of spurned that kind of became my nickname and amongst the guys that I played with over there. And so I thought that would be a great name for the YouTube channel. And in the initial iteration of my YouTube channel, that's what I was going by. I was like, hey guys, it's SamuraiFingers here, blah, blah, blah. And now I've kind of dropped that. It was like a whole persona that it was silly and whatever.
Yeah.
And now I'm much more like, I go by my real name. I say, hey, it's Nick Morrison, whatever. But I've just kept the channel moniker. But again, it's kind of going back to the whole teaching thing is like, well, you know what? I can teach you how to have samurai fingers.
Yeah,
and the people in my community, in terms of like Facebook and on YouTube and that kind of stuff, I refer to them as my ninjas. Like we kind of have like a whole Japanesey kind of theme.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's just it's fun.
So one last question for you here, and on a positive note.
Okay.
What is your end goal? Is there something on your fun bucket list, like a gig you want to play or something you want to accomplish? Like what would be a perfect day for you or a perfect accomplishment in your career the way you see it now?
It's hard, when you look back and you've had as many wins as I've had. I've been really lucky. The one thing I've never got to do would be to play the Canadian national anthem at a Calgary Flames game.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think that would be like a perfect feather in my cap to like top off my, like once I do that, I'm like, all right, cool, job done, I'm good. Anything else that happens after this, as long as I can cruise. And I guess to that point, just can kind of continue what I'm doing, spreading my message, teaching people, sharing the love of music, sharing the love of guitar. And yeah.
Awesome. Check out Nick Morrison, youtube.com/SamuraiFingers. And if you're looking for guitar lessons, guitardojo.ca will help you get there as well. But Nick, we like to end with a game. Do you want to play?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, here we go. We got a prize wheel. There's 10 games that it could land on, and you got Survey Says. Survey Says is pretty easy. We surveyed 100 people online. The top answers are on my cards here. If you get one out of the top answers in 2 out of the 3 questions, you win the game. Here we go.
All right.
It's a movie. Movie Survey Says too, by the way. Name a movie or a franchise of a movie that is set in the future.
Back to the Future Part 2.
Back to the Future, number 1 answer. There you go.
Hey,
Star Trek, Star Wars on here, but technically that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Avatar and Blade Runner.
Nice.
The top list. Give me the title of an iconic movie song that was also a successful pop song.
Ooh.
Movie song that was a pop song.
Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters, I Ain't Afraid of No Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of the actual song, though? I think it's just Ghostbusters.
It's just Ghostbusters. Yeah. It did not make our list, though. That's strike number 1. Any other guesses?
Movie theme songs? Or just movie songs?
Most of these are not the theme song.
Okay. What about Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams from Robin Hood?
Oh, that's good, too. I was thinking the Bodyguard. What's the Bodyguard one?
Oh, yeah. The Bodyguard was also one. That was with
I Will Always Love You.
I Will Always Love You, yeah.
Yeah. No, these are tough. Footloose, I feel like, is the obvious one. Staying Alive, also on there. Eye of the Tiger from Rocky.
Yes.
I don't know Shallow. What's Shallow?
Shallow. No idea.
One of the new ones. My Heart Will Go On, and then number 1, Live and Let Die.
All
right, now you need this
burned
one.
On that one.
It's 1-1. This one I feel like is easy, though, if you know who she is. Name a movie starring Sigourney Weaver.
Alien.
Number 1 answer.
Hey,
Ghostbusters. She was also in there.
Also in Ghostbusters. Avatar. Also in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, so good ones there, but you win. 2 out of 3 gets you a free 30-second commercial here. Any asks or gives for our audience? How do you want to wrap up?
any asks or gifts. Actually, yeah, if you want to go to www.guitardojo.ca, scroll about halfway down the page. If you want to sign up for my email list, I will send you an absolutely free complimentary PDF copy of one of my books, which is Essential Chords and Scales for Guitar. Everything that you ever need to know to play every single song ever written, quote unquote. And that's absolutely for free for anybody that wants to go there and do that.
Awesome. I love it. Anything else you want to add?
Just thanks for having me. It's been an absolute blast. Pleasure speaking with you. Pleasure speaking to the audience. Come check me out over on YouTube, over at the SamuraiFingers channel. I look forward to interacting. And I really am, I'm a small creator. So if you reach out and say, hey, I'm having trouble with XYZ, I will likely email you back and or make a video about it for you. So
that's perfect. I appreciate it. Nick Morrison, thanks for being on the show. YouTube.com/SamuraiFingers, especially if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Check the show notes, click that link and go over there and subscribe to his channel as well. And if you found this video helpful or you think somebody else needs to hear it, click the share here and send this to somebody that you think needs to hear these messages, especially if they want to learn how to re-engage with the guitar, have make music fun again is Nick's slogan.
There you go.
Or if you want to become a playful human and rediscover the power of play, go over there to playfulhumans.com. Have a good one.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine and go out and play.
Go play, everybody.